Some brands offer you low finance, or cashback, or servicing.
Renault don't do ors. We do ands. The Renault Kadjar with 1.91% APR and €1,000 cashback and 3 years servicing, saving you thousands. Renault, the brand with the ands. Visit your local Renault dealer. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Previously on Coffee with Kenobi.
Similar to a lot of the Star Wars toys, at least when I'm at the toy store, it's a lot of 30-year-old guys in the aisle, me included. So
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello and welcome to show number 116 of Coffee with Kenobi, your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation Coffee, the official coffee of Coffee with Kenobi, out of my ILM Episode 8 white mug with red lettering. Thank you for joining me today as we sit back and have some Star Wars conversation. We hope to make you think about the mythology of Star Wars in a whole new way, and maybe laugh a little bit in the process. We spend today's show with co-host Jeff McGee as we take an in-depth look at The Last Jedi Blu-ray release. And, of course, Tom brings us the latest Star Wars news. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Today's show is brought to you by One Nation Coffee, the official brew of Coffee with Kenobi. 4 lifelong friends had this idea that grew into some of the best coffee you will ever have, honestly. It smells amazing and tastes even better. Check out www.onenationcoffee.com to get your morning started off the right way and to learn more about them and how they seek to support traditional American values upheld by members of the active duty military, veterans, and first responders. In fact, they are owned by veterans and members of law enforcement. All orders are roasted in small batches so the customer receives the coffee at its peak freshness. And I can personally vouch for this, having just received my latest shipment from One Nation Coffee. It's definitely one of the highlights of the week for me, to be sure. And my wife loves it too, so you can't beat that. They blend some of their coffee, JB's Buckshot, and Moab with a bean to add an extra caffeine kick. This makes up for the loss of caffeine in darker roasts. So be sure to go to onenationcoffee.com and tell them Coffee with Kenobi sent you. I cannot wait to see what you think about this amazing coffee. A big thank you to everyone for the feedback and the retweets, etc. on the John Boyega show. That was pretty surreal. I'm going to talk about that in a lot more detail on our first Patreon show, which is coming out in a couple weeks. It was just phenomenal. And seeing John Boyega talk through my soundboard and knowing that he was there and I was hearing him live was just, it was great. It was something I will never forget. So thank you again to everybody who helped to spread the word about that show. That was really special. Before I bring in Jeff, I want to talk about Harry's Razors, and what I love the most about shaving with Harry's Razors, besides the price, is the fact that it's a legit, actual good shave. I actually feel like it does the job, and it does it really, really well. And Harry's is all about a great shave at a fair price, which is why over 3 million guys have switched to Harry's. Jeff and Andy are these 2 ordinary guys who were fed up with getting charged an arm and a leg for shaving, and they decided to create Harry's to fix it. Harry stripped out the unnecessary features too, like vibrating handles, heating blades, 15 lubricating strips, whatever, and the unnecessary cost to deliver customers one perfect razor at an amazing price. A good shave comes down to good blades, and because Harry's owns the factory, they're able to deliver amazing quality blades for just $2 a blade compared to the $4 or more you'll pay at the drugstore. And all products are backed by a 100% quality guarantee. Harry's is so confident you're going to love their blades, they're going to give you their trial shave set for free when you sign up at harrys.com/CWK family. You just pay for shipping. Claim your free offered trial today from Harry's. A $13 value for free when you sign up. Just cover the shipping. Your free trial set includes a weighted ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision engineered blades with lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. To get your free trial set, go to harrys.com/CWK family right now. That's harrys.com/CWK family.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is Marvin Dog Media and Comics with Kenobi co-host Jeff McGee.
Hi, Dan. Long time no talk.
I know. I was just talking to you before we started this, and it seems crazy that you haven't actually been on the main show. You were scheduled, of course, to be on for our big Last Jedi review show, but you were otherwise occupied. So you are back, and this is perfect because Now we've got the Blu-ray, and the entire show, as I mentioned at the top, is all about the Blu-ray for The Last Jedi. So before we dive into the actual extras, the meat of this thing, any last thoughts on the movie since you've gotten a chance to look at it again?
Oh, when I saw this film, I knew at the when it was over, when all was said and done, the first time when I saw it in the theater, I knew that I loved it. And I knew that there was something more to it than we had gotten with The Force Awakens, because I enjoyed The Force Awakens, but I'll be honest, it has not held up over time over the last couple of years. Every time I watch it, I enjoy it, but I don't, it's not as rich of an experience especially as The Last Jedi is. And when I left The Last Jedi,
to me. I'm having the opposite reaction, but go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and it may just be the way it's filmed. I don't know. And it may just be because Han Solo dies and I just don't like reliving that tragedy. But when I left the theater for this one, I thought to myself, this is one I'm going to revisit often. And it's one that I'm going to enjoy dissecting. And that has held true. I've watched it. I bought it digitally when it was first released, because I have a new 65-inch 4K ultra high def television.
And how is that?
It looks phenomenal. It looked so amazing when I watched it the first night. And I watched it twice since then, since the first night that I got it. So I've seen it all told 5 times now. I watched it twice on its own and then once with Rian Johnson's commentary, which is wonderful. But I love this film. I feel like this is a film. This is on par to me with The Empire Strikes Back as a film, not just a movie, but a film. I think the themes that Rian Johnson is exploring are worth exploring, and I think they're worth meditating on. And I think there's something more going on with this one than just an adventure. And I really enjoyed everything that happened in it, for the same reason that a lot of people hated it. It was sort of a game changer in many ways, and we'll talk about that as we get on into the discussion. But this feels like
I don't think I've ever sat down and talked with you. Oh, yeah, I agree. And as I've said many times in the review for the website, to me, this is the Dark Knight of Star Wars films. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's beautifully shot. It's beautifully put together. I mean, you can tell Rian Johnson is an auteur of film. He's fantastic. And like you said, the themes are brilliant. I love Mark Hamill's performance. I absolutely love his performance. I wish there was more for Finn to do. And I love Rey in this thing. I think they could have given her maybe just a little bit more as well. But she's brilliant. The whole thing is gold. I love it. And when we talked about, like, the more I watch The Force Awakens, the more I think this is a perfect Star Wars film. I think it's perfect. The nostalgia, the execution of things, how it plays out, the introduction of these new characters, and it's just very rich, very, very rich, very, very warm. This one is not warm. This one is way more edgy and way more adult than any Star Wars film, I think. It's much heavier, more graphic.
Well, see, I think Empire and Rogue One sort of mind the same ground.
They do,
but in a different way. You're right. This one, the themes that this one is dealing with are a lot more complex.
It's much more heady than anything that's been done. I mean, Empire is my standard of excellence too.
Me too. Yeah.
But this isn't the same. And honestly, when still to this day, when asked to where do I rank this one, I don't. This is the only one I can't rank because I feel like this is a sort of a grown-up Star Wars movie compared to the others. Even as heavy as the others were, they're still. This is just different. This is much heavier, much more literary than anything, I think.
I think you're right. Although I have no trouble ranking it. It ranks third on my list, right behind A New Hope.
Wow. I just can't rank it.
And I get that. But yeah, for me, it's everything I didn't know I wanted.
Yep, I totally agree. The first time I saw it, I thought, this is everything I ever dreamed I wanted to start some, but didn't realize it at the time at all. No, I think that's definitely how I felt the first time I walked out of the film. I'm like, wow, they've taken this formula that's been around for 40 years and they've reinvigorated it and kind of repurposed it and made it stronger, I think. So, I mean, we're gushing enough about this, and Tom and I were talking about this last week too. I feel like there's so much about this film that we really haven't explored, and Rebels is sort of taken over, which is fine because Rebels is great.
Right.
But this is all about The Last Jedi. So let's talk about the director and the Jedi documentary. Now, I know you and I have taken some notes on this. I didn't really take a ton of notes on the documentary per se. You can hear me flipping around. But I will say my initial thoughts on this thing are that I think it's great. I think people are gushing about it, and they should. I still think that the documentary for The Force Awakens, how that was made, was better. And I think it was because that was more nostalgic because it was the first time since 1983, and I got to see Harrison Ford walk on to the Millennium Falcon, and seeing J.J. Abrams' reaction to that, it was something that is in one of my favorite Star Wars memories. This thing is great because it's very extrapolated, and you can tell the way that it's filmed. It's not filmed in order, sequential order of the film itself. I really got a lot out of how much the executive producer does on this film, right, and how he and Rian Johnson work together so closely. I knew Rian Johnson was warm. I knew he was good with people. I knew he was smart. So all this did was sort of reinforce that. Didn't give me anything new as far as my opinions of him. But I was very moved by this, particularly, I think the thing that stands up to me the most, and I'm sure something you say, Jeff, will give me even more ideas. But I think this sequence where Hamill goes and sees Frank Oz and Yoda's there as the puppet, and Hamill's reaction to that I thought was really great. But what about you? What about this documentary?
Well, I agree with you there. That was one of my favorite moments. I loved it. I did think, being called the director and the Jedi, I thought that it was going to be more about Rian Johnson's relationship with Mark Hamill because of the that sort of butted heads there at the beginning, and we got plenty of that. So I was surprised that it was just almost a travelogue of the making of the film, but I did love it because I'm a film geek and I love learning more about how films are made. And this was the first time. I mean, we've gotten behind the scenes stuff before, but I feel like this is the most in depth we've gotten with the troubles that they faced and just the logistics of everything. Not since the documentaries we got with the Lord of the Rings have I really felt like I got this much access. So I really, really enjoyed that. And yeah, I loved the thing that struck me was just how much of a fan Rian Johnson is of Star Wars. I think I'm a fan, but this is a guy, first off, the Crystal Cave sequence was inspired by Star Tours, the original Star Tours. Yeah. That was revealed in the documentary. And I just flipped out when I saw that.
So cool.
That just shows you this guy is one of us. Mm-hmm. If there was ever any doubt, this guy is one of us. And some of the other technical stuff, the sound design, they were talking about the sound that they for the ape walkers, that they actually did use natural, like nature sounds from nature of actual animals. I believe they even used sounds of gorillas and other apes in the sound design for it, of them screaming. And it's one of those things that now that I know it's there, I can hear it, but I never would have picked it out before. Yeah, it's sort of like, the dun dun that you hear at the beginning of every Law and Order episode is made up of like 52 different sounds. Oh, really? Yes. And this is much the same way. There's so many sounds layered in that it's hard to pick one out, but you put it all together and it sounds exactly like what you would expect it to sound like. That's cool. I've forgotten about that, and I watched it in two parts because it's pretty lengthy. I mean, it's what is it? Hour and a half. Yeah, it's a pretty lengthy documentary. It's as long as most films, I would say. The way it starts, where they're basically saying, "Hey, we just made a Star Wars film," and seeing all the people that work on these things. I don't think too many people realize how much work goes into this, particularly when we come to practical effects. There were a lot more practical effects in this film than I initially realized, and I knew that they were there, but particularly with the creatures. And I was very excited to see so much Neil Scanlon, and I'm a little biased because I did get to meet him in Pinewood when I went to that Gillette thing, and I interviewed him. And truth be told, when I first interviewed him, I mean, I knew he was important, but I was just sort of in awe of everything that was going on. It didn't really hit me. And then he started talking about how he designed BB-8. I was like, oh yeah, that was you. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And then I saw how much he had to do with this, and then seeing Yoda and that they used the original mold and made that puppet, and the absolute glee on their face when they were going to make Yoda and use him in the film. That, to me, that was really, really cool. It was, and I loved. You mentioned that. I was the thing that amused me the most was the whatever the space manatee, the sea cow or whatever that Luke gets his milk from.
Oh, the siren, yes.
That they had to airlift it onto the island in a helicopter and then airlift it out
in Ireland.
That cracked me up.
That was pretty. I'm glad you brought that up too, because that thing is. There's always one moment. I shouldn't say always, but ever since Rogue One. There's one moment in each of these films I'm just like, oh, why is that in there? And with Rogue One, you could probably guess what it is.
I'm guessing Borgullet.
You got it.
Yeah.
Borgullet and the siren I could do without. But they show a lot about Canto Bight, which is I've made no secret of, is my least favorite portion of the movie. And all the different creatures that they have. Even ever since Return of the Jedi, I mean, Empire was pretty well spot on with all of that, as was Star Wars. But from Jedi and then a little bit in the prequels, and especially in some of the newer ones, there's always a few designs where I'm just like, that's too much for me. I'm not going to say it's not Star Wars, because obviously the people who work on Star Wars and get paid to make Star Wars made it. So it is Star Wars, whether I like it or not. And I'm not going to like every single design, but I think this really highlighted how much of Canto Bight part of it just didn't work for him because of the atmosphere. I did really like the scene, Jeff, where he says to Mark Hamill, hey, I'm going to tell you the title. And he tells him it's The Last Jedi, and Mark was like, that's me. I was really struck by how youthful Mark Hamill was, and how very much he was just almost like a little kid sometimes. And everyone else was like, oh my gosh, it's Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. He doesn't read his press clippings. He's just in awe of everything as anybody else, which I thought was so cool. And yet at the same time, it was very much, business as usual. I thought that was a cool juxtaposition.
It was. And I kind of got, Mark Hamill is sort of, now that Harrison Ford is gone, is sort of the elder statesman on set. And he was for any of the scenes he was in. Right. And I got the feeling that he sort of felt like it was his duty, his job to sort of play host or MC
duty for
the crew.
Yeah.
And but I loved it, because even the scene where they had him up on the scaffold, they had him trussed up, and he was up on the on the what am I trying to say,
on like the not
suspended.
Yes.
And he was doing his song and dance routine up there, and I kind of feel like he thinks that it's his job to do that. And I also thought it was interesting that he said at the beginning, he said, I made no bones about the fact that I told Rian, I don't like what you've done with my character.
Yeah.
He said, but at the end of the day, my job is to present the director's vision. My job is I'm not the writer. I'm not the director. My job is to do what the director asked me to do. And he said, as soon as I told him that I didn't like what he had done, it sort of got it out there in the ether, and it freed me up to go ahead and then do what he had asked me to do. And I thought that was
mature.
It's very mature, and it's sort of an old school mindset for an actor. It's work for hire. William H. Macy said at one point, he said, if you're an actor, you have to keep in mind you're in a service industry. And it's absolutely true. Your job as an actor is not to call the shots. Your job as an actor is to interpret the material that you're given.
Plus, Hamill says flat out, hey, this isn't my character. And I was a little stunned by that. I was like, whoa, wait, of course it is. You're Luke Skywalker. But
I was too.
He was just very mature about that.
Well, I would have thought he would have felt more ownership of it. Mm-hmm. And I think he does to an extent. But I also think that, not playing a character for 30 some odd years, coming back to it, you kind of, I'm sure you probably separate yourself quite a bit. And especially since the character has been represented by, in so much other media. So, right. But it's never been played by anyone else. That's the funny thing.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
We don't have any films or any animated anything where anyone other than Mark Hamill has ever played Luke Skywalker. I don't believe there are any video games where he's voiced by someone else. I may be wrong, but
not that I can think of off the top of my head. No, I think that's a good point. So yeah, part of me is like, whoa, you sure? But that's the reality. He's able to take a step back that I think is really healthy and kind of refreshing, honestly, because he gets it. He gets it.
He understands this is just a movie.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Even though it has clearly made him, a household name and an icon. And what I think is nice about The Last Jedi, Jeff, and I'm sure you'll probably agree, is that when, of course, Hamill's at all the celebrations, And you're like, oh, that's Luke Skywalker, and that's great, and we haven't seen him since 1983. Now I feel like he's got so much more gravitas because he's around, and he's basically a main character or focal point of this movie. And I feel like it's more like Mark Hamill versus Mark Hamill. Do you know what I mean? I feel like his star power is really starting to shine even more since the end of The Force Awakens.
I agree. And I also think that as the demographic of his his fans change, more people, there are probably just as many people who know him as the voice of the Joker from Batman the Animated Series as know him as Luke. I say as many, clearly not, but he's in some circles, he is known more as the Joker than he is as Luke Skywalker. And I think having that success sort of allows him to maintain that distance from the character. This is not the only thing he's known for.
Right.
So it's okay for him to say, I'm going to let this character go.
True. No, good point. Good point. So let's go ahead and take our first break. Good way to start the show. I love this documentary, and I look forward to seeing what other people think about it as well. So when we come back, we're going to look at the deleted scenes from The Last Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi is sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, and much more. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. And I want to take a moment here and talk about Patreon and what we're doing with Patreon. As I mentioned on the last show, we are going to have a brand new Patreon podcast for those who contribute $5 or more a month. And it's going to be a weekly show featuring myself, Corey Clubb, and Tom Gross talking about all things Star Wars. We're also going to throw in a lot of different elements of geek culture as well. I think it's really, really fun because when you're having these conversations, it's not as if they just stay purely on Star Wars. At least they don't for us. I mean, of course, 90% of it is going to be Star Wars related. Let's not get crazy here. But it is going to be a lot of fun, and we are going to record this one the second week in April, so you still got a little bit of time to sign up to make sure you get to be one of the first to listen to the very first show. But before we continue, I want to thank our Patreon contributors like Ben Elkington, Terry Lee, Dennis Keithley, Yancey Evans, Texas Diner, Aaron Harris, Angela Souse, Mediocre Jedi, Ben Brophy, Daz Davies, Tyler Wiggins, Christo Haling, Christian Dale, Jason Hall, Brian McKinney, Connie Shee, Mike Audette, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Tico, and Mark Suter. As you know, with Patreon, there are so many different things you can get from Coffee with Kenobi's Patreon page. Like you get access to our Lens, which is a behind-the-scenes look at Coffee with Kenobi, which is very much like Instagram, where I will post video or pictures of things, and they disappear after about 24 hours, but so make sure to check it pretty regularly. You also get recognition at the start of each show, like you just heard, access to our Discord page, and you could get a coffee mug, t-shirt, or maybe even more things, including hosting the show with me up to 4 times in 1 month. So be sure to check out the link in our show notes or webpage for more information. Hey, Star Wars fans, huge news. Finn himself, John Boyega, is coming to AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. Get ready to geek out March 30th to April 1st of 2018. For more info and tickets, visit www.awesomecon.com. We're back, and we're going to look at the deleted scenes from The Last Jedi. Now, there's quite a few of these, Jeff, and I don't know how you feel about deleted scenes, but for me, typically, overall deleted scenes are deleted for a reason, and I would typically watch them once and then never really think about them or watch them again. But I feel like there's a little bit more to these, and I've written them all down and wrote a little bit about each one, and we'll kind of see what happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm the same way with the deleted scenes. I'll watch it, and unless there's one that's extremely funny, I will probably not watch them again because, again, like you said, they were deleted for a reason. I'll watch blooper reels time and time again if there's really good stuff in there. But yeah, deleted scenes. Like you said, there were a couple on here that I will go back to because one in particular that really had a lot to say that I kind of wish had been left in the film.
No, I think I know what you're talking about, but let's see. So the first one, we have an alternate opening. And in the Rian Johnson commentary, he talks about the different opening that they were going to do for The Last Jedi, and it's this one. They show it here, which is a nice surprise, especially after watching the commentary before I watched the deleted scenes. But he said he didn't go with this one because it didn't jump right away into Star Wars, and he said with Star Wars, you needed to get into the action immediately. So for this, it's basically the opening with Finn waking up and walking around the deck in the back to suit and looking out the window and seeing basically the battle that's going on. And it's pretty good. Like, he yells "Rey" as soon as he wakes up. And when I was watching it, I actually jumped in my chair because I just didn't expect him to do it like that. So I really enjoyed this. I'm not going to say the movie would have been better or worse with this opening because I like the opening of the film the way it is. But this was really, really nice.
I did like this opening. I thought it would have been interesting because it was sort of a cheat. It would have been different. Again, it would have been different from any opening we've gotten so far. Instead of opening on a planet or a ship, it opens up on a person. But the trick of it looking like a planet and then all of a sudden it's Finn's head. It would have been interesting. I don't know how it would have played though, because like you said, and like Rian Johnson said on the commentary, there's a reason he started it the way that he did. He needed to get in on the action. But I do like that we find out right off the bat where Finn is. I'm wondering if there was not some alternate cut where instead of opening with him falling off the table, that we maybe close down on him just like they did in the opening, and then cut to the outside, cut to the action like we did. That might have worked, but again, I had no problem with the opening as it is.
Sure.
I actually really enjoyed it. And
I agree.
The push in down to the planet was phenomenal. So, but I thought it would have been an interesting way to start the film, and certainly an unexpected way.
Right. No, I agree. Then the next deleted scene is Paige's gun jamming, and this is. I felt like, I knew it wasn't in the movie, of course, and I'm glad that this one wasn't in there because it does sort of take away from the tension. There's already enough tension built there in that scene, which is why one of the reasons when you first see this movie that you realize you're in for something different, because the tension in that bomber sequence is just phenomenal. It's because of this actress who plays Paige. Now, I knew about this scene because it's in the novel, and I enjoyed reading it in the novel. So it's cool to see here. It makes sense to me that it was in the film. But it was a pleasant enough scene. It definitely shows, adds more to what's going on, that she's just not someone who pushes a button to be a bomber. She's very active in space combat, but I don't know. What do you think?
I'm with you on there. It was a nice ad, but the only reason I wish that it had been in the film is that it introduces her character a little more concretely.
Mm-hmm.
Although I had no problem with the way it was done in the film, it wasn't ever, I was never confused about who she was. But like you said, the actress is so good. It was nice to spend a little extra time with her. But again, I think the opening of the film is pretty perfectly edited, pretty perfectly cut. So I think anything additional would have just dragged things out a little too long.
Right. No, I agree. So now the next one, this one's going to be tricky. This is the Luke moment. Now, when we first saw the movie, of course, Luke says, "Wait, where's Han?" And there's that cut of his face, which I feel like his eyes are so expressive in that moment, which is why he's a terrific actor, very underrated, that I didn't need anything else. It would have been nice to see, but Star Wars isn't about maudlin. It's not about crying and wailing and gnashing of teeth, because think about it. Princess Leia loses her entire culture and her planet and her people and everyone ever. And, there's no time for our Star Wars commander, our sorrows. So that really wouldn't have played super well. That being said, it is Luke and Han. That's about as high as it gets in Star Wars in the pantheon of these characters. So seeing this moment where he was sad, I thought it was very moving and very nice. But I'm at peace with it not being there, I guess, even though I feel weird saying that. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but at the same time, I'm of the opinion that the only people that we need to see after they die are Jedi, because Han was not a Jedi. He did not become one with the Force, so we're not going to see a Force ghost of him. So if he's gone, he's gone. It would be a first for us to see someone who had passed on. I believe I think I'm correct in saying that, and so I said I'm fine with it as much as I love Han Solo. I think it would have just been. For me, it would have been even more frustrating because this is my favorite character. Yeah, he's in the movie, but it's not him, and he's still gone. So I'm good with it. I think the way the moment was handled was perfect, and just sort of the assumption after he said, "Where's Han?" is enough for me.
Sure. So the next one we have is the Poe. It says Poe Sower, and at first when I read it, I thought it said sewer. I'm like, what? But it's Sower, and that's in the commentary too. He talks about, if you're wondering what happened to Finn's jacket, because of course it got cut at the end of The Force Awakens by Kylo Ren. But it shows that Poe's he sews it. He says, "I'm really not much of a sewer." It was fun. It didn't really need to be in the film, so I appreciate it being a deleted scene. But it was kind of cool. But not anything that I needed.
It didn't even dawn on me that I just assumed. I would assume that if I had thought about it, I would have assumed that he just had a new jacket, had gotten a new jacket.
I hadn't even thought about the fact that it was torn, because I hadn't either.
I hadn't either. It wasn't anything that bothered me. No. It didn't even dawn on me. And so when I saw this, I was like, what? Oh yeah, he did get sliced in the back. I guess that does make sense. But yeah, like you said, it was a nice scene, but not necessary to be in the film at all.
Now this next one, the more we talk about these, and I'm glad that we're talking about these in this fashion, because I think there's a lot there that I knew you would sort of inspire me. We've got the weird recording, that quote weird recording. This is BB-8 trying to console Finn, and Finn looks very melancholy and depressed on kind of the deck of the ship. And BB-8 starts doing some really odd BB-8 things. I don't know that I've ever seen BB-8 be a super ham and try to make Finn laugh, or at least it seemed that way. The effects were really nice.
This was BB-8 as Bluto Blutarsky from Animal House, John Belushi's character. You remember the scene where he was trying to cheer up one of the guys and he kept smashing stuff over his head?
Of course.
This is BB-8's via Animal House.
Well, it worked a lot better for Bluto. So once that stopped, though, and we shifted into him showing the recording of Rey saying we're going to see each other again, and Finn saying that was really where you recorded, but I'm glad that you did. I really liked that. I really liked that character moment between Finn and BB-8. Like I said, I could have done without all the kind of the oddities at the beginning, which I'm sure little kiddos would have liked, which is great. So I don't know. I feel weird saying, well, I'm glad I could have. I'm not glad they got. I don't know. I like that moment with BB-8 and Finn. I really did.
I liked the moment, but again, I understand why they cut it, and I love the fact that Finn did comment on the fact that he said it's weird that you recorded that, but I'm glad you did, because if I had been watching it, I would have thought, wait a minute, why would BB-8 have recorded that? So it was a very meta moment, and a very kudos to Rian Johnson for acknowledging that, hey, this is sort of a weird moment, and it's only here for. It basically calls it out as a plot contrivance.
Mm-hmm.
And I can respect that, which is why I'm glad it wasn't in the film. I love it. I love the way he did it. But had it been in the film, it would have just felt snarky. It would have felt very meta, and that's not what Star Wars is.
And honestly, this may have been much more of a Finn moment than a lot of the film. And I feel like I missed Finn in this movie. Like I liked his character so much in The Force Awakens, and he was fine in this one, but I feel like a lot more of his personality was just sort of below the surface. And maybe it's because he just has a different relationship with Rose, and he's just kind of in his head a little bit more, which I respect. But that kind of comedy line of, I'm not sure why he recorded that, I like that. I really like that about Finn. I wanted more of that in this movie.
Yeah, and you're right. More of Finn would have been good, but I'm not sure what else he would have done. A lot of people thought that
it's more what he would have said than what he would have done.
Right. And I'm with you on that. It's not something that I thought about consciously, but you're absolutely right. We didn't get a lot of Finn being Finn. We got Finn growing as a person, which I think is great, and I love the way that his character arc was handled. So it will be interesting in episode 9 to see if we get more of that humor, or if he continues to, quote unquote, grow up and grow out of that. Right. I'm hoping there's some sort of happy medium that the writers are able to come up with.
I agree with that. So the next one I think is fascinating. This is the one that I think most people are going to be talking about. And it's a pretty extended scene. It's a very extended sequence with Rey and the caretakers. The first one, I guess I'm kind of combining them into two, but they're not two. The first is Rey looking at the caretakers, and one of them is kind of shearing this fish with a knife, and it gives her this look like, I don't like you. I'm very glad the scene wasn't in there. I mean, I guess it was sort of amusing, but I don't see caretakers as like scary, hey, I'm kind of threatening you subconsciously with this knife sort of a deal. I'm glad they cut that out. In fact, I almost wish I never saw it in the first place.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. A little bit of the caretakers goes a long way, and the less you have to think about the logic behind it, the better. Yes,
I agree. Now, let's shift really quickly to the village when Luke has this pretty intense lesson to Rey, which is very much like one of the big things we've heard over the past 10, 15 years about the Jedi and the Clone Wars is, the Jedi, it's their own fault or they're arrogant or this or that. And he says, oh, you want to go help them, but guess what? The Jedi would tell you not to. And really, that's what Yoda says to Luke in The Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. And so he says, you're just going to have to let this one go. And she's like, well, wait a minute, they're going to be attacked. And he says, if you go in there with force, you're going to come back the next time with even more force and just going to escalate. That kind of is a nice snapshot into his concerns about why he's isolated on Ashto anyway. So I like that. And then so she rushes in there and kind of leaps across the rocks, which I thought was pretty cool. And although you can tell the effects on that weren't necessarily
you can tell
all the way.
Wire work. Yeah, it's completely wire work. Yeah.
And we haven't really seen Rey do something like that Jedi-wise anyway. Well, not that it really matters, I guess. So she breaks in, and it's the male caretakers, which if you know from the visual guide that Pablo wrote, the males only show up, once a month?
Once a month, yeah.
And to just celebrate and consummate, and then they're gone hunting again. So it's like a celebration of it. And then they look at her when she's holding that lightsaber, and instead of looking threatened, she kind of raises it in the air because they like basically ask her to, and they're like, "Yay!" And then it's over. I'm like, "Whoa, okay." Totally glad that wasn't there. But the conversation with Luke and Rey, I guess I get why they took this out because it was pretty like there wasn't a lot of thinking that had to be done as far as there was no like subtext between the two of them or tension or underlying moment. It was very much in your face. So I'm glad that was out because it was very much a little bit off from the rest of the exchange between the two of them throughout the film. But all in all, a pretty cool, interesting moment.
This is the scene that I wish had been left in for a couple of reasons. One, we sort of see Luke turn into Yoda for a second because he's playing a joke on her. She says, "Why didn't you tell me?" He says, "Well, I was going to, but you ran so fast," and starts laughing. That's a total Yoda moment, and I love that. And I love that we're seeing a little bit of levity from Luke. So he's sort of showing that the Luke that we knew and loved from the original trilogy is still there. He's just sort of buried under this other exterior. But the main reason that I wish they had left it in is because of one comment that Luke makes to Rey. She said, she took off running, and he says that's what the Resistance needs, not some burnout husk of a religion.
Yeah, I like that too,
because it's if you take it from a Christian perspective, faith without works is dead. What the Resistance needs is someone who believes this, putting their faith into action. Mm-hmm. And I think that we sometimes forget that it's a popular thing right now. So I don't want to like cause any controversy by saying, people are always complaining that thoughts and prayers don't do much without actual action. This is sort of, the Jedi version of that. And I really appreciated that. And I liked that. And I thought that was sort of a really strong theme in the film. And so I would have been nice to have had it sort of underscored there. And again, I just love this moment of levity in it because we have a lot of comedy in the film, but we don't have a lot of levity, in my opinion.
Good. Oh, I like that. Very well said.
Thank you. I do that every once in a while. And this sort of gives it to us, and it helps us know that
we got it on tape.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. And so it does show that, there is some light and some life on this island. There are good times.
Yes.
It's not just a place for Luke to go and sulk.
Maybe that's why I didn't like it. Because, if he's going to be sulky, curmudgeon, let's just go all in. That's what I secretly want to be like when I'm older.
I think you're probably going to fail because it's just not in your character, Dan.
So then we go on to, I do want to say it, like you mentioned that very well, but I like how they emphasize his neurosis in this, and I think that it's a very interesting layer to him. Didn't need to be in there to me, but I like that you wanted it to be in there. I think this is the one that I think will have the most people talking. Let's talk about the father chase sequence. I've already said a bunch of times that wasn't my favorite thing. But in fact, why don't you go first with this one?
Well, the only note I have there is this extended scene is unnecessary for a variety of reasons. One, the scene in the film was already too long as it is. Two, it's unfinished. Like more than half of the scene, we're just watching animatics. Mm-hmm. And I don't get anything out of that. I get nothing out of that. So I don't understand why they felt the need to include it, because if it had been a completed sequence, so you're seeing a lot of imagery that you wouldn't have been able to see in the film that looks beautiful, great. But if I'm just watching a bunch of drawings and basically motion comics, I'm not interested. I thought there was no reason for this to be in there, and I can't imagine who would be entertained or intrigued by this.
Oddly enough, I really liked it.
Okay.
And you're right. I know, it's not
your answer.
Right? No, I think that the Canto Bite was way too long anyway. I think it could have been 10 minutes and would have been fine. They gave it more screen time than the Cantina. And the Cantina has more importance to it than what's going on here. I like it because I like the feel of the chase. It felt more exciting. And I very much had a Spielberg vibe, especially with the fact that there was orchestral score in there. It very much felt like an 80s Spielberg chase sequence, and I really liked that a lot. The hot tub sequence didn't really do it for me at all. This kind of backs up more what I said about some of the creatures, just to me particularly don't work for me as well as other characters. But I really like the sequence overall, which, I'm pretty shocked that I did.
We're sort of diametrically opposed, because the spa sequence is the only part of it that I really enjoyed. because have you ever seen the film Spirited Away?
Yes.
Okay, it reminded me of that, of the spa sequences in that, with the big large creature that will come in and they'll, the attendants come in and scrub everything off, scrub all the sludge and everything off of him. It reminded me of that, and I love that film. So anytime something reminds me of it, it makes me happy. So
sure.
For no other reason than it felt sort of like an homage to Spirited Away to Miyazaki.
Right. Which it probably was.
It probably was. And, Star Wars owes a lot to Asian cinema in general, with the Hidden Fortress being, the sort of the impetus for one of the impetuses behind Star Wars in the first place. So I actually really enjoyed that. I loved all the creatures. But again, I'm glad they didn't put it in the film, because I don't think it was necessary. But that was the one part that I did enjoy.
All right, so I realize how much we spent a lot of time on these, so I want to move a little bit quicker. But I will say that the Destroyer incursion sequence with that had wonderful, powerful tension with them walking through and all those little. It basically looked like an old film from the 40s or 50s, where like you're getting these rooms where there's all these people working like in a factory or a newspaper, and they're all these members of the First Order are these little towers, working away or typing away, whatever they're doing. And there's one man that is following after them, and you think he's going to maybe catch out to him. But none of that beats when they're on the elevator and all those stormtroopers walk in, and the one says FN 2187 and starts looking at Finn. And then Rose goes down to her blaster, and Benicio del Toro's character, DJ, was sitting there, and he looked a little nervous, but he also sort of seemed like amused or high, quite honestly. And I don't know, I love that. And then it got really weird with him sort of patting Finn on the.
Oh, you mean when he turned into Gomer Pyle?
Yeah, that was awful. I'm so glad that part was in. Now the tension was great.
Out of place. Tension was great, but that characterization was so out of place.
Very.
It was cringeworthy. I was just going, it was embarrassing to me. But I did like the rest of it. But I don't know how you get out of that scene without something like that happening once he's recognized. But I liked the scene itself. I think with a different characterization from the Stormtrooper, it might have worked a little better. Yeah, might have been nice. But I did like the tension of them getting into the elevator and then the other side opening up. It was very wonderfully done, very masterfully done.
It really was. I thought, wow, I thought that was a nice sequence that we didn't really see that kind of tension or suspense throughout the other parts of the movie. Well, that's not true. The Snoke Rey Kylo thing, that certainly is.
AKA one of my favorite scenes in any Star Wars movie ever.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Totally agree. So I'm just going to name the next couple really quickly, and we can just say any comments you want to. But so you got Rose biting Hux, not necessary.
Out of place. Didn't like it at all.
The Phasma fight, we can talk about that. The Rose and Finn escape, and then the Rey and Chewie Falcon thing, that was really, really quick. It was fun, but I'm glad it wasn't there because it would have sort of taken away from the tension of that Luke moment, which I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but that Luke moment was, I still feel this way, was the Luke Skywalker moment I wanted my entire life, and is my favorite scene in any movie ever. I love it. So I'm glad that wasn't there because it would have taken away. But man, I was like Michael Jordan goosebump excited when I saw that sequence. So all those are, they're fine, sort of out of place. The Phasma fight, I like how Finn says Rebel scum more in the final cut. And this one with Phasma, I think this one with Phasma, does seem to show more clearly that she's been, eliminated. But I feel like it shows her a bit more cowardly. Now we know the novel of Phasma shows that I wouldn't say she's a coward so much as she is a fearsome parasite and a survivor. So I'm glad that she's very much an opportunist. But I feel like this made her a little more cowardly, which sort of the comic series did as well, even though I liked it. It very much fit in with the novel feel. But I liked the Phasma fight sequence the way there was, and I've never had a problem with that sequence. Phasma, just like General Grievous or Boba Fett or on and on and on,
not their story.
A main character. That's right.
It's not their story.
Right. So anything else about any of those, or should we move on?
I think you said it all. The Phasma was the only one that I had any kind of notes on, and I did like the scene. I liked the one thing I liked about that deleted scene is we saw Finn thinking well on his feet. Yeah, and I think it added to his character a little bit. But again, I did like the way it was done in the final cut just as much or better.
Same here. So we'll go ahead and take a break. We'll come back and do some news with Tom. Then we're going to come back and talk about all these extras. Here's a bit of a sneak preview. The Balance of the Force extra is the best thing on this Blu-ray. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Let me give you a task. Pick out a wine that you're going to love, but there is a catch. It has to be one you haven't had before. Now, where would you start? Introducing Winc, spelled W-I-N-C. Winc's name actually comes from the combination of wine plus incorporated, so you have wine plus ink equals Winc. Winc makes it easy to discover great wine. Because Winc's wine experts select wines matched to your taste, personalized for you, and shipped right to your door, starting at just $13 a bottle. Winc makes exploring new wines fun and easy, with delicious wine based on your taste, delivered right to your doorstep every single month. There's really nothing like that first time you come home to a box of 4 bottles of wine selected just for you. All you have to do is you fill out Winc's palate profile quiz. You'll answer simple questions like, how do you take your coffee? How do you feel about blueberries? Things like that. And then Winc will send wines curated to your tastes. The more wines you rate, the more personalized your monthly selections. And each month there are new, delicious wines like the insanely popular Summer Water Rosé. There are no membership fees, you can skip any month, and you can cancel anytime. Plus, shipping is covered. And if you don't like a bottle they send you, they will replace it with a bottle you love, no questions asked. With online ordering, quick shipping, and personalized recommendations, Winc makes discovering wine really, really easy, and you're going to love it. You're also going to love the Winc Journal, which is included with every wine each month. It gives you recipes to pair with your wines, info about the selections curated for you, and it has a great design, making it perfect for the coffee table. It's really, really easy to go to a store and settle for the same old bottle of wine that you like, and it leaves you kind of but it's so much easier to let Winc ship wine right to your door that is perfectly matched for you. So sit back and relax or celebrate with your glass. You have finally discovered the best way to find new wines that you'll love with Winc. Discover great wine today. go to trywink.com/CWK family and you'll get $20 off your first shipment. That's trywink.com/CWK family, all one word, for $20 off. trywink.com/CWK family.
The Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app features incredible images from many aspects of the saga, including the original trilogy, the prequels, the Clone Wars, Rebels, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. It's the quality you have come to expect from Topps. It's also easy to get into and really fun, too. Your favorite Star Wars characters, scenes, and moments are in every pack. To get started, download the app for free from iTunes or Google Play, and then be sure to open the app each day for free credits to spend on card packs from the Cantina. Plus, if you can't get what you're looking for, there's a place to trade with your friends as you complete your Star Wars collection. And if you're an experienced collector, there are exclusive cards, special inserts, and autograph opportunities for you to enjoy. Don't worry about missing the cards and sets you want either, as you can sign up for notifications right on the app. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app from Topps can be downloaded for free from iTunes or Google Play. Be sure to download the app and start your collection today. The Star Wars Digital Card Trader collecting app from Topps is available now. And remember, these are the cards you're looking for.
We're back and we're going to look at some Star Wars news as promised, which means, of course, Tom is here with us. Tom, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. What a great week. Well, hey, let's start things off with a big announcement. Disney announced plans this week for the D23 2019 Expo in Anaheim. The expo will take place from August 23rd to 25th at the Anaheim Convention Center. All of Disney's divisions, including Star Wars, will be celebrated and highlight what is to come at the parks, on television, music, streaming, merchandise, films, you name it, it'll be there. Highlights will include over 50 panels and presentations, an all-new exhibit created by Walt Disney Archives, a daily parade down the middle of the show floor, and much, much more. In addition, attendees will have the opportunity to meet their favorite Disney stars, characters, Imagineers, animators, and filmmakers. Of course, there will be shopping opportunities galore with D23 exclusives, vendors, oh yes, vendors, as well as a D23 Expo Emporium where fans can buy, sell, and trade collectibles, memorabilia, and merchandise. Tickets will go on sale at the D23Expo.com website this August on the 23rd.
So the D23 Expo is sort of that convention that I've always dreamed about going to, very much like before I ever went to Celebration. The first Celebration I went to was Celebration 3. I didn't go to the last one, and it was a bummer. I mean, wasn't this last year, I believe, they had Mark Hamill got his special Hall of Fame award? Yeah, and then the one 2 times before that was George Lucas. I mean, my goodness, that would be the one I would want to see. So this thing is really, really on my radar. It just sort of depends on how the school calendar fills out, and even if I can only go for the weekend. I've been wanting to go to the D23 Expo for a long time. And honestly, there's something else I can't quite talk about yet, although I will very soon, that is going to make this even more prevalent to Coffee with Kenobi. So we'll kind of see how that goes, a bit of a tease for you. Another reason this is important, besides the fact that it's at the Anaheim Convention Center, which I still think that the Celebration Anaheim was better than the Celebration Orlando. Jeff, do you feel the same way? Yeah.
Agreed, 100%.
One of the reasons is the location. So I'm pretty sure that Galaxy's Edge will be open then. So not only do we have the D23 Expo, but then you can walk across the street to Galaxy's Edge and wait 4 or 5 hours to probably get into that section of the park. So I mean, I really want to go to this thing bad.
I would say, yeah, I actually had never thought about going to a D23 Expo until he said Anaheim Convention Center, and that for some reason that alone is enough for it to make me think, oh, maybe I could go, especially since we have no information on the next celebration. Right. So yeah, I'm actually, this kind of has me intrigued as well.
Oh, cool. That'd be great. We could all somehow make that work.
Nice. I think one thing that seems neat about this one is, and I don't know, this is probably small beans compared to everything else that will be there, but this is right around that time frame where the Disney streaming app will be coming live.
No, that's not small beans. I'm sure that'll be a huge aspect. Whoever the cast is, or whoever the show's going to be, I mean, I'm sure that'll be a big factor for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's in the middle. It's at the end of August, right?
Yes, the 23rd to the 25th. Yep. Yeah, another thing, I've never been to the Anaheim Convention Center, so now you guys are really like piquing my interest in how great this is going to be.
Now, Tom, you don't like crowds. This is going to be
I know.
Pretty crowded.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, let's see. We've got another. Oh, yes. On StarWars.com this week, they released an excerpt to the much anticipated Timothy Zahn novel, Thrawn Alliances. Which, of course, is the follow-up to the popular Thrawn novel. The excerpt shows dialogue, quite chilling at times, I might add, between Palpatine, Thrawn, and Vader. We learn of an order to bring Thrawn and Vader together on a secret mission that will send the two of them to a familiar location of Batuu, which I believe is the setting of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so check out the excerpt for yourself at StarWars.com or, of course, on the Coffee with Kenobi new updated website. The book will hit the shelves this summer on July 24th.
This little section, the banter between, Timothy Zahn knows Star Wars voice better than just about anybody. And just this section alone is enough reason to want to get this book and read it in one sitting. And knowing that it's Batuu is brilliant, because the whole purpose of Batuu and Galaxy's Edge was, and as Jim Hill has told us on the show a couple of times, look, they could have made Tatooine. That's Luke's story. They wanted to make a planet, a Star Wars place that's going to feel like your story when you're in the parks, like you're a part of the Star Wars universe, part of the Star Wars experience. And now knowing that on Batuu, you've got Thrawn and Vader as a part of it. Now, I haven't seen the book yet, so I don't know what's going to happen. But knowing that is a part of the planet's history and culture is just thrilling to me. I love the synergy that they do with Lucasfilm, with the story group. I've said that many times. I'm sure I'll say it many, many more times in the history of this podcast. But this is wonderful. I'm even more excited if that's even possible for this book. Because let's be honest, there's so many that come out. And I'm look forward to reading them, but some I'm like, oh, okay. And I read them because I feel like I should, and I want to, and I want to know the entire story. That's kind of important when you're running a Star Wars podcast. But not all of them get me at a level of excitement that this one is.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Anytime Thrawn is involved with anything, I get excited because he's just such a great character, and I'm right there with you on that one.
Have either of you read the first Thrawn?
I have.
I've listened to the audiobook.
Okay, so does it lead you?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, reading the comics.
The thing about the novel that I've always sort of been like about is that Thrawn is very much shown as someone who wants to protect his people, and he doesn't ever do anything to like purposefully hurt someone just out of meanness or spite or pride. Whereas in Rebels, he does that fairly regularly. So something needs to happen between the first novel and his appearance in Rebels to indicate this. So I'm presuming that just being around Vader is just sort of what does that. So we'll see.
Interesting. Well, our final story it's based on one from about 2 weeks ago that we brought you, a story about Anovos, a company that is officially licensed to create Star Wars costumes and props. And 2 weeks ago, we reported on the women's Imperial officer uniform. Well, this week, Anovos has announced and is offering pre-orders on a Mandalorian jetpack kit for $350 with delivery in the summer of 2018. So just in time for, well, all sorts of stuff. As with many of the Anovos props, the kit requires cleaning, trimming, painting, and assembly, and the kit is a duplicated version from a visual reference 3D scans, and it comes with the choice to make Boba Fett, Jango Fett, or an original Mandalorian jetpack creation.
Unless it's an actual jetpack, I'm really not interested.
This is cool. I love that you can take these jetpacks and make it a Jango one or a Boba Fett one, and that you can customize it the way that they have it line up. It's pretty cool. Anovos, I don't know how they have time to make all these incredible products that they make, but my goodness, they are constantly doing incredible things, aren't they?
They are. And Jeff, I'm with you. This is not something that would be in my market. But when I think about going to Star Wars events, like our Star Wars Reads Day that we do at our school, Dan, I think about some of these costumes that come in and how magnificent they are. And I'm just thinking, these jetpacks on the back of some of these costumes would just be the icing on the cake.
No, you're absolutely right. I was half joking when I said I wasn't interested. I do think it's a great idea, and since it is a Novos, they're going to be first rate. Saying if it was a real jetpack, I would pay at least double what they're selling them for now. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, there you go.
All right, load it with some fuel and send it off.
Well, thank you, Tom, for bringing us this information. We're going to go ahead and take another break. And by the way, I just thought about this the other day when I was, doing something around the house. Typically at the end of shows when we have guests, I let them plug, where their Twitter handle is and things of that nature. And we never do that on the news. And to me, it's just because you're not a guest. You're on every show. You're as much a part of the show as I am. So, but if you're interested and you want to plug, go ahead and plug away so people can find you on Twitter.
Oh, absolutely. On Twitter, I am Draftline. And Dan, I don't know if you noticed, I just opened an Instagram account. I stepped into that world, and so what am I? Cycling librarian is what I am on Instagram. So I haven't posted anything yet, but it's coming.
I love it. Cool. Well, be sure to check that out, everybody. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Jeff and I will finish our conversation on the Blu-ray extras on The Last Jedi. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Coffee with Kenobi was sponsored by the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. If you love Star Wars and love the excitement of chasing your favorite Star Wars collectibles, the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps is for you. Download the free app from iTunes or Google Play and collect your favorite images from the classic 1977 Star Wars cards to the Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and now The Last Jedi. Collect and trade with friends new and old through the Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps. These are the cards you're looking for. Coffee with Kenobi family members, we have got some amazing news. John Boyega, Finn himself, is coming to AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. Get ready to geek out March 30th to April 1st, and you can look on www.awesomecon.com for all the information. And he's not the only one there. We've got people like Dave Bautista, Jeremy Bullock, Stephen Amell from Green Arrow, Sean Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy, Stan Lee from, of course, Marvel Comics fame, Tom Welling from Smallville. Everybody's there. AwesomeCon is an amazing event that Washington, D.C. holds every year. It's located at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C., 801 Mount Vernon Place. And if you are in Washington, D.C., this is the way you can meet Finn. I mean, he doesn't make a lot of convention appearances, so knowing that he's going to be there is incredible. So be sure to tell him that Coffee with Kenobi sent you. So don't forget, Washington, D.C., March 30th to April 1st. Get your chance to see John Boyega, Finn himself. We're back, and we are going to close out the show with one more segment on this Blu-ray. And I had said before that we're going to talk about the rest of the extras, including Balance of the Force. Now, I had said, Jeff, that this is my favorite thing, and it is my favorite thing on this entire Blu-ray, because anytime you're someone who makes Star Wars talk about the Force and the mysticism of the Force, it completely just blows my mind. And there's one where Filoni and George Lucas are talking about the Force in one of the later seasons of the Clone Wars, and it's brilliant. I need to find exactly which disc it's on, but my goodness, it's great. And this kind of carries on that tradition. Before we jump into it, anything that kind of initially jumps into your mind about Balance of the Force?
No, I enjoyed the whole thing, and I loved everything that they had to say with it. But it's another one I got kind of engrossed in. It didn't actually take any notes, so I'll have to jog my memory as we discuss it. But like you said, I enjoyed it, and I remember the sequence you're talking about in the Clone Wars. They were having it was a meeting with the story group, and George Lucas sat down and was just sort of holding court about what the Force is, and it was almost like watching Yoda teach.
Yes.
And,
true.
This felt very similar to that. Some of the discussion that went on.
I agree. Well, this thing is he said that for the Last Jedi, he kind of wanted this to be like sort of a reset lesson, especially for new fans of Star Wars, to kind of see what the Force is like and what it's about. And he says, Luke selflessly shuts out his friends, unlike in The Empire Strikes Back, where he's faced with a choice and he goes against Yoda and the spirit of Obi-Wan and goes to save them. Now, for this, it appears, at least in his mind, that he thinks that he's doing the right thing now. So he thinks if he doesn't come back, then the Sith can't rise. So he thinks that's going to help. And then light only rises from a different source. So hearing Luke, in his view, sort of explains a little bit more about why he's exiled. And then there's an interesting thing where he talks about Rian Johnson being the he I'm referring to here, is the cave sequence with Rey, which I did a write-up on for IGN that I encourage you to check out. And he says, as far as Rey and her parentage, when in The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke hears that his father is Darth Vader, that's the worst thing that could happen, because suddenly it's not, there's this big bad guy that I hate. Now it's a little bit harder to hate him because I'm a part of this person. He is my father. So that's why it's so powerful and why it's so hard for Luke to accept or to deal with. Now, Rey is the opposite, according to Rian Johnson, because she wants to know who her father is. So that the worst thing for her is still not knowing and realizing that who she is and who she needs to be is someone that she's going to have to find out on her own, not because of who her parents are. And that's why I've always said that this is Rey's dark side, this belief that she's not enough without knowing her identity, where she comes from. When we find out, and she finds out, that's just not true. Anything jump out for you on those topics?
Yes. I loved, because I sort of felt the same way that Rian Johnson did. It is sort of, Rey is sort of the flip side of Luke. She wants to know who her parents are, and she doesn't get to find out. And I thought that was a brilliant choice. She wants so badly to know who her parents are, and to find out that they were nothing is the worst thing that could happen to her. She's going to be forced. I love it, though, because it means she's going to be forced to make her own way, to make a name for herself instead of finding an identity through someone else. The other thing that it does, and a friend of mine that I work with pointed this out to me, and I loved it, is it sets Kylo Ren up as the only person in the galaxy who understands her, who understands what she's going through. And on the flip side, she is the only one who understands him and what he's going through, because they're the only two, as far as we know, that are really trying to learn the ways of the Force at this point, even though they're trying to learn, from different angles. And it reminds me a lot of, in The Lord of the Rings, it's in the film version, I'm not sure if it's in the book, but there's a scene where Frodo sends Sam up to Mount Doom. Gollum has sort of turned Frodo against Sam, and because Gollum is the only one who knows what Frodo was going through, as he is the only other person who's ever had to bear the ring, it makes it easier for him to send Sam away. And by the same token, Gollum is the only one who understands him. He's the only one who understands Gollum. So it makes a connection for them, even though it's ultimately a destructive connection. But it's the same thing. It reminds me, it's very reminiscent of it, because you've got these two characters. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the next film, because it would be very easy for Rey to take Kylo Ren up on his offer to, join me like he did in the throne room. So many echoes to the end of The Empire Strikes Back in that scene where Vader was asking Luke to join him and they can rule the galaxy together. It didn't feel like a rehash in this film. There were so many echoes in this film of the previous films, but none of them felt like rehashes or fan service. It all felt organic. Right. That's well said as well. Yeah. I agree. I think choosing to make Rey's parents nobody was a bold move, and I think it was the right move. And I respect Rian Johnson immensely for coming up with it and having the nerve to follow through with it. Same here. But before we wrap up this section, because there's a few other extras, like the Andy Serkis live thing is cool. I mean, it's because it's just like a master class in acting. Yes, I wish, in seeing that, I actually wish that they had just let Andy Serkis play Snoke. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. In fact, I probably would have liked Snoke more. It was creepier, scarier, and more effective with Andy Serkis doing it. Because let's be honest, Andy Serkis is a phenomenal actor. He's sort of brilliant. Got a cottage industry around this motion capture stuff because he played Gollum. Mm-hmm. Nice little unintended connection there. But he was so sinister in this sequence, and I watched it, and then the next time I went back and watched the film, I wasn't as moved by it.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Wait, before we anything, because there's something I want to say about Kylo and Rey before we end, but before we do, lighting the spark, the creating the space battle, Snoke and mirrors, and then the showdown on Crate. Any of those scene breakdowns? Anything you want to say about them?
Well, I think there was. I don't remember if it was in the showdown on Crate, but there was one. It may have been in the documentary, the Jedi, the director in the Jedi. But I think at one point he referenced that on Crate during with Luke versus the First Order on Crate. He referenced that says there's a reference to a Ralph McQuarrie Probot painting. Oh, in one of these shots. I think it must have been in the director and the Jedi, but I loved it because again, it shows that this guy is one of us. Yeah, is absolutely one of us, and I loved again everything. All of the extras on this are worth watching because, again, I'm so interested enjoyed the film so much, and I think Rian Johnson. So you can really his enthusiasm for it is infectious, and I think that comes through in all of the extras.
I agree, and I should mention two things. One. On the deleted scenes, one of the options you can do is you can watch the deleted scenes with Rian Johnson talking through them, which I didn't do. I haven't yet. I'm sure it'll be awesome. It'll probably give a lot more insight than us two yahoos yodeling on. There's also an option where you can watch the entire film, but just the soundtrack. Did you do anything with that at all?
Haven't done that yet. That yet. I did get the score on vinyl. However,
which is awesome.
For some reason the way it was shipped, the records already have scratches on them.
Oh,
I have to send it back to Amazon. I'm gonna put them through my spin clean and see if I can clean them up a little bit before I do that. But I may have to send them back. But I haven't done that. I have watched it with the commentary track, which is very enlightening and very interesting. I'm a sucker for that. One of the reasons that I still buy physical media is because for a long time that was the only way you could get commentary tracks. But thankfully, iTunes and now Vudu even has started adding them as special features. Right. So I can say goodbye to physical media eventually, maybe. But I would highly recommend his commentary track because just like the ones on the Star Wars DVD and Blu-ray box sets that came out, they're very, very engaging, very entertaining, and very enlightening.
Spin Clean? Let's go back with Spin Clean. You have that for vinyls?
Yeah, it sounds fancier than it is. It's just a little tray, and you fill it with water, and then you put some of the clean liquid in it, put the record down in it, and you spin the record 3 times each direction. You dry it off, and then it will clean up, and sort of if there's any debris or anything on it, it'll clean that off and make it play a lot easier.
How great is that? Do they have a Spin Clean for old Nintendo cartridges? Because that'd be something.
No, you just blow in those.
That's right. And what did people suddenly learn? I think we need to blow in this thing. Like everyone seemed to know that. It's not like there was a message board. Where how did people figure that out collectively?
I have no idea because I was the last on my block to have a Nintendo, and I already knew it at the time because one of our friends would be like, "Hey, yeah, you should blow into it if it won't play, and that'll fix it." I don't think it actually did. I really don't think it actually did. I think it was just sort of a way to make us feel like we were doing something.
It seemed to work. The Force was indeed with it. That's cool. Well, the only thing I wanted to say about Rey and Kylo, was there ever a part of you during that sequence, that incredibly powerful, poignant sequence with Snoke in that throne room, where you thought Rey was going to turn or you thought Kylo was going to turn? Because I didn't think either of them would. I didn't think for one second either of them would.
I didn't think Rey would, but when Kylo turned the saber on Snoke, there were cheers in the theater when it happened.
Oh, big time.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
And I thought for a split second, I thought, this is going to happen. And I had the exact same reaction that Rey did when he asked her to join him. I was so along for the ride, and I thought my heart sank when he said, "Join me." Yeah. And, Rey said, don't do this. That was exactly what I thought. And I was right there, hook, line, and sinker.
No, I mean, I knew that Kylo was doing this purely for Kylo-ness and selfish reasons and survival. And plus, he's probably a little mad that Snoke kind of tore him apart, metaphorically at the beginning, you're a child behind a mask, which Rian Johnson does comment on in the commentary. That sequence really well, of course. But no, I never thought he did. I just thought he's in it for him. Of course, he wants Rey to join him, but it's not because he cares about Rey. I think it's just because he knows that Rey is a powerful person they could have, in his arsenal, so to speak. Because I think he's very selfish.
I'm still
I could be proven wrong.
There is still good in him. Yeah.
I mean, I know that's what people think, and that's what they want us to think, but I don't know. He killed Han Solo, and that's hard to overlook.
Yeah, it's hard to come back from that.
And he did try to kill Luke. Let's be honest. If Luke wasn't so powerful and so full of peace and purpose, then he would have killed Luke too. Although he did back off from killing his mother, which is good.
Right.
So,
and that's what, like I said, there's just he even made the comment. He said, "I struggle with the pull to the light." So I thought maybe he's finally given up.
Maybe it'll be fun to see, of course, what happens in episode 9, and the fact that after Solo, we're going to have kind of a long-ish drought for a Star Wars movie. Not, I mean, the longest since Disney took over, not in real. But I'm welcoming it.
We used to wait. It's funny. We used to wait 3 years in between, and now we're like, we got to wait a whole year and a half.
I know, isn't that funny? I'd happily wait 3 years. I mean, I thought that was really fun. But hey, we'll take it, won't we? We will certainly take it. So we'll go ahead and take our last break, and when we come back, we will find out where to find Mr. McGee on social media. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Before we get to email, I want to thank our CWK sponsors, One Nation Coffee, the official coffee of Coffee with Kenobi, which can be found at onenationcoffee.com. Smells amazing and tastes even better. I'd also like to thank AwesomeCon, Wink, Harry's Razors, and the Star Wars Digital Card Trader Collecting app from Topps. Please support them. They're the way to support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including iTunes, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Spreaker, Overcast, Blog Talk Radio, Player FM, our website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. If you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, home of the CWK Coffee Chat, Pinterest, and Tumblr, and we'd love for you to check us out there. Be sure to listen to our CWK family shows too, including Legends Library, Rose Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. Please leave a review for each of them on their shows as well. Be sure to subscribe to each of them individually, as they all have their own iTunes feeds now. Thank you so much to Jeff McGee for coming on and joining us today. Where can listeners find you and your contributions to Star Wars fandom?
Oh, they're many and varied. They can find me on coffeewithkenobi.com on the 25th of every month with my monthly blog, The Caffeinated Collector. I'm in the midst, nearing the end actually, of my several-part series detailing my thoughts on each Star Wars film one by one, about discussing what it is that brings me back to the films over and over after 40 years of Star Wars.
By the way, as your friend and just as a mutual Star Wars fan, I love these. I really like them. Yeah, it's a kind of a cool window into your thought process.
Well, and it's actually been interesting for me because I've sort of learned as I'm writing them. As it's not something I've thought about until because I purposely don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it until I get ready to write it, and so I'm sort of surprising myself with some of my findings as well. So that's one place you can hear me every week on Mr. Matt Moore discussing the latest and greatest in Star Wars comics. You can hear me every week on the Geek Supreme on the Assembly. We have a lot of fun with that, with Regina Davis, Darth Taxis, and Scott Murray. And on Marvin Dog Media, Taylor Limberry and I host Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff once a week, where we discuss vintage toys and why grown men still love them. And for the moment, I think that's it.
All right.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheJeffMcGee and at Marvin Dog Media, and you can Taylor and Jeff and Comics with Kenobi on Facebook.
Very good. We'll have links to all these things in the show notes. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening to and supporting Coffee with Kenobi and for contributing to Star Wars Conversation. We will be back next week with 2 new co-hosts and more Star Wars discussion, and I will be filling you in on my trip to Hollywood and the Denny's Star Wars experience and what they're going to do to promote Solo. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.
Hey, Star Wars fans, huge news. Finn himself, John Boyega, is coming to AwesomeCon in Washington, D.C. Get ready to geek out March 30th to April 1st of 2018. For more info and tickets, visit www.awesomecon.com.